T minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have main engine start. We have liftoff. What's up, guys? I have to talk about this right here. The huge elephant in the room. I have to talk about the Shroud of Turin. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of it or if you know about it, but I have heard about this years ago and have been following this for years, and I am completely fascinated by this thing. The Shroud of Turin, which is thought by some to be the burial wrapping of Jesus Christ, and by others to be a medieval fake. Whatever it is, it's a mystery how the cloth came to bear the image of a man. So basically, when you look at this cloth, you could actually be looking at Jesus Christ right here. This right here is the most studied object in the world. And that's saying a lot. Even more so than the pyramids. This right here is the most studied object in the world. And it has people baffled on how this perfect image is on this cloth. This is one of the few objects that have made atheists believe in God, that has made scientists believe in God. I didn't need the Shroud of Turin to believe in God and Jesus Christ. I've always believed in God and Jesus Christ from the way I was brought up and reading the Bible and going to church. But seeing this really makes you believe in Jesus and God. So just what is the Shroud of Turin? The shroud has been venerated as the burial cloth of Jesus since at least 1355, when it was displayed for the first time in Lille, France. It has attracted large crowds and the minting of several souvenir medallions, one of which can be found at the Cluny Museum in Paris. The shroud has undergone more scientific testing than any relic in human history. These investigations concern the unique nature of the image and the dating of the cloth itself. The Shroud of Turin is used to wrap the body of Jesus Christ when he has risen. The Apostle John's Gospel mentions the burial clothes left in the tomb. And John seems to imply that the cloth played a role in his belief that Jesus had risen. The shroud is a unique three-dimensional image of an entire human being. It's a burial cloth containing the full-size good resolution image of a naked man who was crucified. The image is in negative form. It stayed on the fabric's surface, but the blood seeped through. No one can explain it, and no one can duplicate it, not even with modern science today. The Shroud of Turin has been studied for over 115 years. Many scientific results point to Jesus Christ.
Those who say that the shroud is fake are outdated with the new scientific evidence. Those people probably heard about the 1988 radiocarbon dating test, which are now proven incorrect.
Okay, guys, so the way I understand this is that the shroud is old, and over the years it's been through a few fires and has had water damage. So So the three pieces of cloth that they gave the scientists to carbon test back in 1988 were sold in by nuns hundreds of years later and to fix the shroud. And that's what they tested. So it couldn't date back to Jesus. So the test basically inaccurate because they didn't give him the piece of the cloth, the shroud. They gave him the piece that the nuns had sewed in or somebody sewed in to fix it. And I also saw that the pieces that they used to sew in was made out of wool or cotton, and it didn't even match the original shroud material.
A new dating technology called wide-angle X-ray scattering has placed the fabric within the time of Christ. This new method is more accurate than the carbon-14 dating test.
And here's what I was talking about. The sample had cotton in it. However, the original cloth of the Shroud of Turin is entirely linen. The history of the Shroud of Turin begins in the year 1390 AD when Bishop Pierre d'Arcis wrote a memorandum where he charged that the shroud was a forgery. Historical records seem to indicate that a shroud bearing an image of a crucified man existed in the possession of Geoffrey de Charny in the small town of Lyre, France, around the years 1353 to 1357. The history from the 15th century to the present is well documented. Secondo Pia, born September 1855 and died September 1941, was an Italian lawyer and amateur photographer. He is best known for taking the first photograph of the Shroud of Turin on 28 May 1898 and, when he was developing them, noticing that the photographic negatives show a positive image of the man in the shroud in addition to a clearer rendition of the image. The image he obtained from the shroud has been approved by the Roman Catholic Church as part of the devotion to the Holy Face of Jesus. The shroud is absolutely amazing. Scientists prove that the man on the shroud is a crucified Jewish man from Jerusalem around 33 AD, had remarkably similar wounds inflicted upon Jesus as reported in the New Testament. After 72 hours, his body moved. His name was on the shroud. Wow.
There are no pigments on the shroud, but there is blood. The blood type is AB and from a male. This blood type is not common in the general population, but it is more common among Jewish people. The blood on the clothes is weirdly vivid red. Normal blood turns brown to black as it ages. But when someone is cruelly tortured, their blood goes through a terrible process. The hammock breaks down and the liver produces an enzyme called bilirubin. When this happens, the blood stays red forever. It indicates that the man of the shroud suffered terrible torture. The way the blood runs down his arms shows that he was crucified. His arms have two blood flow angles which fit the crucifixion victim, switching positions to breathe. Remember that the bloodstains came first and the image came after the bloodstains. It might be coins used for Jewish burials in the 1st century. The coins had the same size as a coin from Pontius Pilate used between 2 BC and 32 AD. The size of the shroud is very close to 2 by 8 cubits, which was an ancient unit of measurement. The 3-inch wide side strip on the Shroud of Turin was sewn on with a unique stitch used only in Palestine in the 1st century. Archaeology has shown that the nails used to crucify people were actually driven through their wrists, not their palms, like all the paintings from the Middle Ages depict. One nail goes through both feet, but the other foot has only one nail. This lets one foot rotate so that the victim can push up and down on the cross to breathe. The locations of the nails indicate that the shroud is authentic. We know that the crown of thorns pressed into Jesus' head. Guess what they found on the shroud? Sharp object, punctured wound all around the head. And there was the pollen from that thorny plant. They found abrasions on both shoulders caused by carrying a heavy rough object, such as a heavy cross. There is a 2-inch wide elliptical wound on the side. This is about the size of a Roman spear. The back image shows a separation of blood and clear blood serum, which happens when a person has died and got a wound. So the red blood cells settle, resulting in blood and water exiting from the side wound, as it is written in John's Gospel. These details fit only one man and only one story in history. There is no clear explanation for the image, but several physicists suggested that the coloration on the linen fibers was made by a sudden flash of high-energy radiation. Scientists estimate that the power needed to create this image is more than all the electrical power generated on Earth at once. Now what?
It would take all the electrical power generated on the earth at once, and it's got to be coming from inside a person's body to create that image. So tell me, who do you think that is? You guys can look this stuff up for yourself. There's so many videos about this, but they all say the same thing. It's like 400 wounds on his body, and you can see them all. You can count them. That's how clear this image is. Recently, a researcher by the name of Barbara Frail says in a new book that she used computer-enhanced images of the shroud to decipher faintly written words in Greek, Latin, and Aramaic scattered across the cloth. Barbara Frail believes Jesus' death certificate said, Jesus Nazarene, found guilty of inciting the people to revolt, put to death in the year 16 of Tiberius, taken down at the 9th hour. Everything about the Shroud of Turin matches up with what the apostles said in the Bible. They can even look at this picture and tell that his nose was broken by the way it's curved to the side. It's amazing.
The question, hey, a normal photograph doesn't look that way. In fact, I have a picture of a normal photograph that goes through a VP8 image scanner that checks the eight degrees of black and white, etc. And you can see it's a garbled image. It's not detailed like the uniquenesses of the Shroud of Turin. This is an even more helpful slide. Now, when we go even better technology now, when we look at the image on the left, it's enhanced. Theologians were there. These were rocket scientists that were there. These were the experts from labs who understood the best photography of their day. Notice that you can see it has a 3D quality to it. And so I want to just say this is my number 2 because, again, no other photo does this. And yet a 2,000-year-old linen garment does. Wow. So here is a sculpture that was made in the 1960s by a very astute artist who noticed that this image has this topography. It has a chemistry to it, a physics to it, and he literally created a sculpture just based on what they discovered in the VP from the VP8 analyzer. I think this is just phenomenal, and we see the accuracy there of the face of Jesus as it's reflected in the shroud. All right.
It is one more thing that goes with the Shroud of Turin, and it's called the Shroud of Ovredo, or Shroud of Ovredo. It's a blood-stained piece of cloth measuring 33 by 21 inches, and is kept in the Camera Santa of the Cathedral of San Salvador, Ovredo, Spain. The Shroud, Latin for sweat cloth, is thought to be the cloth that was wrapped around the head of Jesus Christ after he died, as described in John chapter 20, verse 6 through 7. The cloth has been dated to around 700 AD by radiocarbon dating. However, the cloth has a definite history extending back to approximately 570 AD. One more thing. The blood DNA from the Shroud of Turin match the blood on this headcloth.
At the latest and most mind-blowing discoveries, a Paris-based organization, the International Center of Studies on the Shroud of Turin, found writing on the cloth. Maybe you noticed that below and to the sides of the chin, there are 3 clear and regular lines where no imprint is present. When the official photographs of the shroud were divided into tens of thousands of squares, each square was given an optical density and was put into a visualization program, and some letters gradually began to appear. They were in Latin and Greek under the chin, written Jesus and on one side Nazarene. How is it possible? The executor mortis was the person who made sure the condemned person was dead. He used a cloth with glue to write the person's name. Where these strips were drawn, the shroud was not affected by the process that made the imprint. So the man on the shroud is Jesus, our Lord and Savior, and the Holy Shroud is a proof from God to every believer and every doubting Thomas.